Hey guys, welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great Saturday. And I had to remind myself what day it was. I've been working so much, but um, we're gonna have a good post game podcast show. Obviously, this was a very chaotic game to watch, and I'm sure you guys were yelling at your TV, probably like I was as well. But if you are coming in and you're watching us live on YouTube, make sure to hit that like button. It does help us out a lot, pushes out our content, and does kind of help the YouTube algorithm to give you guys more Detroit Pistons content. Also, if you are listening on the audio side, you want to give us a review wherever you get your podcast. We're everywhere, Spotify, Apple. It does really help us, and we do appreciate it. But let's get into this game, you guys. We'll go over the quarter notes, and then you guys know the drill. After done talking about the quarter notes, we will get into questions, comments, concerns, overall thoughts. What are you guys thinking of this Detroit Pistons basketball team? So let's get into the first quarter. So Tim Hardaway Jr. was back, thank God. THJ is just on a heater. This was the THJ in the beginning of the season where we're like, is this guy ever going to miss? He just came back and looked like prime Ray Allen. Like some of the shots that he was hitting from three, it was just incredible. Sar Thompson did start at small forward. Just kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of a heads up if you haven't watched the game yet already. But the vets came in, and I really felt that they helped this team throughout majority of this game. THJ was hitting his threes. Tobias was hitting his threes. The ball movement was really good in the first quarter as well. Jalen Duren was playing hard. He brought energy. There was a play tonight where first time I've actually seen Jalen Duren sprint up and down the court. He sprints to get back on defense. He contests the Emmanuel Quickly layup. Obviously, Quickly does not make the shot. Then he's sprinting, running the passing lane perfectly. And Tim Hardaway Jr. hits a corner three. Like, you have to give Duren credit, and I do want to give him credit. I want to give him a shout out because when he's played bad, I've talked about it, but he's been playing a lot better as of late. So I want to give him his respect and his credit. I think there have been times where during, the win streak that we had and just the past 2 weeks, he's been playing a lot better. And I think the way that the Pistons are using him more, blitzing on the perimeter, I think has really helped him. And he's been a lot more active, I think, on both ends of the floor. I'd like it to be a little bit more consistent on defense, but I'm nitpicking at this point. There are more positive defensive possessions than there have been, negative. It's getting more consistent. So that's all we ask for as fans is, just try to, bring consistent effort. And I think he's done that. But this first quarter was weird, you guys, because we had a 13-point lead. Cade goes to the bench at the 4-minute mark, and Chris Boucher looked like freaking dirt out there. He could not miss his shot, you guys. He had 14 points in 6 minutes. He was 4 out of 5 from three. And that 13-point lead that the Detroit Pistons had in the first quarter completely dissipated. It was a tie game, 32-32. Heading into the second quarter, once we had our starters back out there, Cade, THJ, Tobias, they did regain the lead. It was a small lead. They had a 5-point lead, first couple of minutes going into the second quarter. But throughout the second, the Pistons just could not hit a shot at the rim. The Raptors were doing their best to try to defend this team, and they're not really known to be a good defensive team. They're more of a fast-paced offensive team, but I think it was just a thing where the Pistons just couldn't hit shots. But, the Raptors got back into this game just because of the running opportunities that they presented. I thought the Pistons, perimeter defense for a majority of this game wasn't that good. I thought the third quarter they started to pick it up, last 4 minutes in the game. But, the perimeter defense, I thought tonight was pretty bad, but the Raptors do move that ball from side to side and make that extra pass. The rebounding again, I think is getting concerning. Maybe it's some stuff that they can clean up next practice, but I feel like the Raptors had it. I don't even have the box score pull up in front of me, but they probably had over 10 plus offensive rebounds. It seemed like they were just getting the ball, or the ball was just landing in their hands, or they were just out hustling the Pistons, and it was a weird game. Like I'm not even going to say this was a pretty basketball game, but they did win. Going into halftime, the Raptors did get a lead, 66-65. Coming out of half, THJ was just aggressive, scoring at all three levels. And I think this is a game that, the Pistons needed every point from THJ and Malik. Cade had a triple double tonight, really aggressive. I really want Cade to have a 2020 game. I want him to have a 20-point, 20 assist game. He was close. He had 17 tonight. Did have 8 turnovers, though. I want to add some context there. I think some of the turnovers were just forced. Others were just kind of like slow down a little bit, process it a little bit. Nothing to be like overly concerned with, but this was just a game in the third quarter where they were just exchanging baskets. It was back and forth. But the Pistons defense late in the third quarter started the turning up, and they gave themselves a little cushion to end the third quarter. They were up 99-93, still a 7-point game. But, once Cade got back into the game in the fourth quarter, immediate impact. Had a couple assists to Isaiah Stewart, hit a 3. And the Raptors just had no answers for him tonight. He was just everywhere, from scoring to assisting to defending. I felt like he got fouled quite a bit and didn't get to the free throw line like I thought he should have. But I'm not even going to get to officiating because it's just bullshit every night. Beasley hit some big time threes to really help secure this win late in the stretch. But the one thing I do want to mention is the Raptors kind of choked. They missed 7 free throws down the stretch. This game could have been a lot closer than it actually was. If you look at the final score, the Pistons did win 123-114. I mean, if the Raptors make a couple of those free throws, this game may have gone into overtime. But the Pistons get back into the win column, you guys. They end the week 3-1, so they're winning at a 75% rate this week. Would have been great to have another undefeated week, but hey, we'll take it. Pistons are 20-19. We're almost to the halfway point of the season, and I think this is a team that is going to be a play-in team at the end of the day. A play-in team, maybe a 8-7 seed. Maybe they can go on another little win streak here, but they beat a bad Toronto Raptors team that they should beat. Even though the Raptors gave us fits and problems, I mean, you'll take it. I think there is some stuff to clean up. I think the rebounding, the defensive rebounding, is something that I think they need to do a better job at. I think at times this week, I didn't like some of the possessions where we were just kind of forcing it in, crowded lanes. But overall, they're still playing good basketball. Cade Cunningham is looking like an all-star. Not really much else I can really get into. We're just going to take a quick break, commercial break. After that, we will answer any comments and questions you guys have about this game, or whatever else you guys want to talk about. So we'll be right back right after this, you guys. Okay, guys, we are back. Now, this is the part of the podcast where I open it up for you guys and we get into comments, questions, overall thoughts with this game. I do want to go to Cruza. He's got the first comment of tonight's live podcast. It's like, nice to see Duren knock down some clutch free throws to ice the game. Yeah, Duren has not worked for a couple of coaches. I think they just look at his free throw numbers this year, and obviously they're down. Like, there's no debating that. But Jalen Duren's a pretty good free throw shooter. I know if you look at the stats from last season to this season, there's a big drop off. But overall, the form's good, and it was nice to see him, knock down some of those free throws to give the Pistons more of a lead down the stretch. But I do agree with you. I don't think Duren is the same as Dre back in the day. I think Duren's more than capable of, icing those free throws. Jay Hart, 3-1 to finish the week is becoming a trend this season, fellas. It is. I mean, I think there's only been one time this year where they went, I think, 1-3. They've had a lot of 2-2s. Last week was 4-0. This week, 3-1. I think if you go into just a week-to-week basis and you're going 2-2, 3-1, you'll take it. You can just stack these wins and keep trying to climb up the Eastern Conference playoff ladder to give yourself a pretty good shot of making the playoffs this year. And I think we have a big enough sample size with this team where at the end of the day, they're going to play 500 basketball week to week. And that's such an improvement from last season. 3-1, I think we'll take it. We'll take a 75% win rate. When you beat the teams that you were supposed to beat, you beat Brooklyn, you beat Toronto, you beat Portland. I mean, Golden State was the only game this week where I think you look at them and they're probably going to be a Western Conference playoff team, but you played them hard. It went down to the wire. It's not like they won by a bunch of points. They only won by 3. So this team's competing, and that's all you can really ask for as a Piston fan is these guys aren't laying down. They're playing for a full 48. Might not be the prettiest basketball. Might not be the type of basketball that we want to, have because we got chest pains or we're yelling at our TV or the officials get way too into their feelings some nights. But, overall, I think you can just be really proud of this basketball team, and you're probably excited to watch this team every night like I am. I have a comment from Chuck Brewer, and I feel like we've talked about this so much. It's getting to a point where it's just like, I want to stop talking about it, and I hope Trajan does address this at the trade deadline. But Chuck's comment says the lack of second point guard on this team is so glaring. Though when Kate is off the court, our offense just looks. Our offense is just a confused mess. If they don't bomb the threes, we don't score. This trade deadline needs to. Okay, a lot to unpack here. I agree, Chuck. Like, when Cade goes to the bench, it is very disorganized. I know they're trying to develop Marcus Sasser into a point guard. And I've given my opinions and thoughts on Sasser. I think he's more of a guard, an off guard. Is he capable of, setting up the offense? Sure. But he's not that lead ball handler that you want to have setting up your offense every possession. I think there's room for adding a secondary ball handler or even a backup point guard for that matter. It's no shot at Sasser. I just think they're playing him out of position right now. I think they've been playing him out of position since the summer league. I think he's had moments where he's scoring the basketball and it looks good, but when, to your point, when they're not hitting their 3-point shots, the offense looks like a complete mess. Like the first quarter was a perfect example. The Pistons, come off hot, 13-point lead in the first. Cade goes to the bench, they lose the lead. And instead of, trying to stack onto a 13-point lead, you're tied with the Raptors, and the Raptors are getting confident, and then it became a game. Trajan did mention that they have shifted their focus to, instead of renting out their cap space, they may look to explore, adding more pieces to help out this team, because I don't even think he expected the Pistons to be this good this season. He said this week with FanDuel that they're ahead of schedule. He's like, we did not expect this team to be on this trajectory. We did not expect this team to be on pace to win 40 games this season. So this trade deadline will be very interesting to see what their approach is. Don't know if they're gonna, make a huge splash. It might be an entry-level starter like a Tim Hardaway Jr. It may be an above average guy, maybe a Cam Johnson, maybe a CJ McCollum. I don't know, but I think it's very interesting that the Pistons have completely changed their strategy and have said, like, hey, like, instead of renting out our cap space, we may look to, possibly get some guys to, help Cade so he doesn't have to do everything. But appreciate the comment, Chuck, as always. Got a comment from Bayern. Does Trajan needs to make a big move in the deadline? The team chemistry has been great. I think this is a conversation that we're going to have tomorrow, but I'll get into it a little bit because we're doing a podcast tomorrow with our guy Pistons Thoughts out in California. So hope he's all good. I think he will make a move now. Whether it's the big splash that Pistons fans want, I've been seeing Bradley Beal. I've been seeing Devin Booker from fans. I've been seeing Ingram, Zach LaVine. I don't know if it's going to be on that type of caliber move. It might just be a small marginal move, right? It might just be more guard help, more ball handling help, maybe more wing scoring, more wing defenders. I'm not really sure. I don't know if he's going to just, put all his chips on the table and, make a huge trade, because I think when you look at this team, Tobias Harris is the most expensive player right now, but next year it'll be Cade. Don't really know like what the long-term plans are for this team. They might just, make an above average move to try to get them, over the hump where this team doesn't look like they can't function without Cade. Which I hope that's the case. I hope they at least get another ball handler, because I think it's needed. You could play Sasser, off ball, and he would probably look more natural. It would look more comfortable out there, just in my opinion anyways. I have a comment from PD Mac. Shout out to you, man. Appreciate you. This game was quite frustrating. The Raptors and their fans are annoying. Yeah, it feels like every Pistons-Raptors home game is an away game, if that makes sense, because a lot of Canadian fans come on down from whether Windsor, Ontario, Canada, or even Toronto for that matter, because Pistons games, believe it or not, are a lot cheaper than going to a Raptors game. So I saw a lot of Raptor jerseys, watching home on TV, and I know a lot of people that went to the game tonight said it was like 70% Toronto Raptors fans. There were barely any Pistons fans there on a weekend game, which I kind of found surprising, but it doesn't help when the Pistons do raise the ticket prices. I looked earlier this morning. I mean, like, you want to go in a lower bowl, you're probably looking at $100 just for tickets, not to mention gas and time and all that other stuff. I mean, like, if they want more fans to come to these games, they're gonna have to start lowering tickets, because tickets have been like really, really high. And I get they're winning more games, but like, you want to have more butts and seats, you should just have like a promotional night where maybe tickets are half off, or waive the fees for that matter. I feel like fees sometimes can get more expensive than the tickets themselves. And I never understood. I still don't understand fees on tickets. I think it's just a scam. But that's another rant for another day. But I do agree with you, PD. Raptors fans are very annoying, and it is great when we do kick their ass. Comment from Case Cracked. Are vets picking up the slack? That's something I've noticed too. I've noticed that, like, since Jaden Ivey has gone down with that injury. Tim has picked up the slack. Tobias has, picked up the slack. Malik has been Malik. He's had a couple of games where it's been like, not as consistent as it was throughout the season. But I really like the veteran leadership that we've been getting from all our vets. Like Tim, I did not expect to come into the night looking like a flamethrower from three. I know he's capable of, hitting threes, but he's really just picked up his game offensively. And I think the Pistons have needed it. Tobias had games this week where he was picking it up. And like we talk about these three vets so much on this podcast this season, you guys, like they have brought a lot of culture and a lot of identity to this team. If this was a team last year and they were, going back and forth with the Raptors, like if that was Bojan or Alec Burks on that team, no shot they win that game. But Tobias, Tim, THJ, they've been great. I've loved watching them just, be vets on and off the court, take over games when it's their time. Kate does a really good job of just, looking for Tim, looking for Malik, looking for Tobias. I think all of these vets throughout the season have at least won the Pistons a game or two just with their shooting and just their ability to make baskets. So been really, pleased with the veterans this year and, the vets that Trajan did decide to, go out and sign. I have a comment from TW. Great podcast as always. Thank you for your analysis. Much appreciated. Great to see the Pistons improvement this season, one game at a time. I appreciate you, man. Comments like that make me, stay up to do these with you guys. I know some days in some post-game podcast, I feel like I'm just dead ass tired and I might not make sense, but I appreciate, each and every one of you. We got 82 people in here right now at 10:30 at night. So that just tells me that you guys do like these post-game podcasts, and comments like this, help me get through it. So I appreciate you, man. I want to get to a couple more comments and questions with you guys. I want to keep Tim Hardaway Jr. now, bring him back, and let him be the backup small forward with Beasley. This comes from Devon. The THJ is on an expiring. Don't know what it would cost to keep him. Not really sure. But he seems like he's having fun being here. I mean, Dallas is completely stopped playing him last year. That's because he wasn't hitting his shots. But I think, THJ is still trying to prove that, like, hey, I belong in this league. I can be a starter. I can hit my shots. Don't know what his future holds. Don't even know if, Trajan will keep him here past the deadline. I hope he does, because I feel like Cade loves playing with him. He said post-game, like, it's so fun to play with a shooter like a Tim Hardaway Jr., because he can get going at any time. And you have to think, like, Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. are the two best shooters that Cade Cunningham has ever played with. I mean, he had 17 assists tonight. He probably could have had up to 20 if more of his teammates were knocking down their open threes. But I don't really know what THJ's future holds. I really don't. Good player. $16 million contract. I don't know if the Pistons are willing to go into like that type of spending for him. But I think he will have a lot of suitors come the trading deadline. A lot of these veteran teams would like to have a player like Tim Hardaway Jr. coming off their bench, just being a flamethrower from three. Obviously, the defense is the defense. We don't really come up here and, try to break down Tim Hardaway Jr.'s defense. But his shot making tonight and, throughout this week has been really crucial for the Pistons. I really like, what I've been seeing from him this season, but I appreciate the question. I want to get to a couple more comments and questions. This does come from Cruza talking about Zach LaVine. Says that he has been on a heater lately, has developed amazing chemistry with Lonzo Ball. Now, this is what people, I think sometimes people forget, right? when Lonzo Ball was healthy, now you'd have to go back a few years. When the Bulls were healthy, when they had Lonzo, they had Vooch, they had LaVine, like that team was like a top seed in the Eastern Conference, you guys. So there was always chemistry there. Lonzo just was not available. And you're seeing, Lonzo's leadership, paired with Zach LaVine, paired with Vucevic. There's still chemistry there. Zach has been great. I know we've gotten into the Zach LaVine stuff for the past 2 seasons. I think at the end of the day, if you just take the contract away, guy can score at all 3 levels. He can heat up instantly. I think it just depends if you're the Pistons in the front office. Like, what is the long-term goals and what are the plans? Like, what does contract extensions look like? All that stuff. What do you do with Jaden Ivey? Do you just kind of like kick him out of the starting rotation, say, hey, you're a 6 man now because we got Zach LaVine? I think those are all questions that as fans we should have, a discussion about, because I think the way Jaden Ivey played this season, I believe, in a few years, who's to say that Jaden Ivey can't score at all 3 levels, can't average 20 points a game? The injury that he has, it's not going to really impact his athleticism whatsoever. I like Jaden Ivey. I like Zach LaVine as a basketball player, but those are the questions I have. Like, what happens with that? Like, do you give Jaden Ivey a contract extension? Would the Bulls want him in a trade? Would the Bulls want one of your young prospects? Like, would they want Asar? Would they want Ron? I don't know. Because I don't think you're going to get him dirt cheap like the Bulls were trying to sell him off last year, because this season he's put together games where he's, I think I saw it the other day, it was like 30-point games this season from him. I like Zach, but at the end of the day, it's kind of a thing where I think that you're going to have to pay to get him. You're not going to get him on a discount like you were last year. Like last year, they were going to accept the trade for like Bojan and Marvin Bagley. Like, I don't think that's going to be the case, because I think he has more value because his contract has 1 less year on it. I think the Pistons would have some competition of, trying to get him. But I don't really think Zach LaVine is on the Pistons radar. I could be wrong there, though. I mean, we're still very, very early in these, trade rumors and trade deadline season. Have a comment from Key Ozzy. I have not seen you in this, podcast live stream before. So if it's your first time, welcome. The good GMs of ours never make a splash like that. All other teams want, because we're working on the future as well as the present. Yeah, I think a lot of the trades, Key, that we talk about on this podcast are like, I'll use Devin Booker for an example, right? Like, a lot of people want Devin Booker, but I don't think people understand, like, to get Devin Booker, you're talking about probably giving up draft picks that are a few years out. Like, the Pistons can trade draft picks. They're just not in the immediate future. It's probably draft picks. It's probably 2 or 3 pieces out of your young core. Like, it's probably Asar, it's probably Ron, maybe Ivy, just to get the conversation going. Like, I love Devin Booker, but I think sometimes when people don't take into consideration is just like, it's not 2K. Just because you get the salaries to match doesn't mean that the trade's going to go through. I mean, in real life, I think if you wanted a player like a Booker, you're going to have to overpay for Phoenix to even consider it. And I know they're struggling this season, but still, like, they're more willing to trade Bradley Beal right now because they know Devin Booker's a better basketball player. They'd rather keep KD and Booker. And I think at the end of the day, unless the words come out of Booker's mouth that I want to play for the Detroit Pistons, I think he's going to be a Phoenix Sun. Maybe he'll have like a, Tracy McGrady type tour when he's like 35 and want to play in Detroit, and he's not the same player that he used to be. I don't know, but I think a lot of times fans just have like these plans of we want to trade for player X, and we'll be able to get him for cheap I don't think that's going to be the case. Like, you'd have to pay a lot to get a Devin Booker at the end of the day. But I appreciate the comment, Key. I just think sometimes these fans get a little bit crazy with these these trade scenarios and like trade talk and everything. I want to get to a couple more comments and questions with you guys. I appreciate all 83 of you guys in here right now. Get into this question from DG. If we were the Rockets in terms of being a top 4 team in the conference, I pulled the trigger. I pulled the trigger for Booker ASAP. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's a completely different conversation, right? Our Pistons are a play-in team 8 seed, right? They're just finding out how to win basketball games, right? How this differs from what they're doing now versus like when they were the 8 seed under Van Gundy is they have young players that haven't completely hit their ceiling. They have cap space. They have a franchise guy that they really believe in, and I think more people nationally are starting to take notice of Cade Cunningham. Now, to your point, if the Pistons were a top 4 seed and they were just that one piece away, sure, you make that trade. You pull the trigger for let's just say, Devin Booker. But they're just learning how to win basketball games. I think it would be really premature to try to make that big splash now because, like, it could blow up in your face. Like, do you want a situation where you trade for a player and it doesn't work out? I don't think so. I don't think anyone watching that would want that. I think you can add pieces this deadline without really forcing, future draft capital, having cap space where you're not handicapped on like 2-3 guys. Like, look at Indiana, for example. Like, Indiana has Halliburton and Siakam, and that's like $90 million right there committed. And they made the Eastern Conference Finals last year, but I don't think Indiana's happy where they're at. And I don't want that to happen for Detroit where, they're winning games and they overpay for like one player and then it doesn't work out. And then they have like really tough decisions to make, down the stretch. Like, I don't want that. I think Trajan can look at maybe like a B- player, and the Pistons could get into maybe a 6 seed, maybe a 5 seed. Because, I mean, if you look where, the difference between a 5 seed and an 8 seed is, it's not that many games in the Eastern Conference. It really isn't. We'll do one more question from Cliff. So, would Zach LaVine for Ivy be similar to Donovan Mitchell for Sexton? In trade value, I think it would be. I feel Jaden Ivey's better than Colin Sexton is right now and currently was in Cleveland. I like where your head is at, Cliff. I think it would be a tier below. Donovan Mitchell is just a stud, but I think Zach LaVine, to me, could, he can score way more in bunches. I think Mitchell is a player that can get you 25, but also play some pretty good defense. I think Mitchell's a better defender. But in terms of, like, if you want to make comparisons between like a Ivy for LaVine and a Mitchell for Sexton, I think Ivy to me would probably have more trade value, just in my opinion, anyways. I don't really think that they're kind of like on the same like wavelengths. I think Ivy's a better player than Sexton. I think he would actually hold more trade value, even injured right now. But that's just my assessment on it. Okay, I lied. We'll do one more. I love answering this questions with you guys. Someone had asked about Tim Hardaway Jr. or not Tim Hardaway Jr. Michael Porter Jr. Get my juniors mixed up. Pistons for Michael Porter Jr. That's an interesting one. He's another player that is on a bigger contract, but man, can he shoot the ball? Can Michael Porter Jr. shoot the ball? Does it make sense for the Pistons? I think if you're looking to get another bucket getter next to Cade, yes. but what's the asking price? Like if Denver came to you and said, okay, we'll trade you Michael Porter Jr., but we want a future draft pick and two of your young prospects. Like, would you do it? Like if they said we want Ron Holland and Asar, or Ron Holland and I don't know, Isaiah Stewart in a first, would you do it? Probably not, right? I think at the end of the day, players like that would make this basketball team a lot better. I honestly think that Michael Porter Jr. would be such a great fit next to Cade, because he can shoot the ball, he can defend a little bit, he can switch, but overall, I don't know if MPJ to the Pistons would actually be realistic, just because Denver, if you look at the draft picks, they don't have a whole lot. They're another team where they probably want to be a lot better than they currently are. And they would probably ask for a whole lot. I think the only reason why you saw rumors this week or a couple weeks ago where it was like LaVine for Michael Porter Jr. is because like they're kind of on the same wavelength of like return. Like if LaVine does go to Denver and Michael Porter Jr. does go to Chicago, that's a pretty fair deal. For the Pistons right now, like outside of Cade, like who's the second best player on this team? Like probably Ivy. And like, are you really going to trade Jaden Ivey for Michael Porter Jr.? Probably not. And he's still on a rookie deal, so you would have to attach more salary and more assets. And that's where like when we talk about trying to get guys that are on bigger contracts and like 90% of our players are still on rookie contracts and the money doesn't really add out, then you're going to have to attach draft picks. You're going to have to attach, players on larger salaries. I don't really know. I think at the end of the day, I just don't think, MPJ would be realistic. Okay, I'll let Jay Hart have the last one. What's up with the lack of Rookie of the Year with Ron? His numbers have been great, but I guess he needs 18 a night to make noise. I think it's just a thing where he doesn't play enough. Because let's say Ron played like 20 minutes a night, then he was putting up like a good like 8.5. He'd probably be in that rookie ladder every week. But I think that's all it is. Like if Ron played more, he'd probably at least be in the conversation. But like you look at like any type of Rookie of the Year like rankings, he's not anywhere near it. And it's just like I'm okay with that because I like him as a player. I like him as a prospect. His 3-point shot is looking better and better each and every game. Defensively, I love what he brings, but I think the reason why you don't see him in any Rookie of the Year stuff is just because he isn't getting the playing time that the other rookies are getting. So a lot of people don't really pay attention to what he's doing on a night-to-night basis. But I think that's just the only reason why he's not getting any type of recognition from the national media for Rookie of the Year. But I'm going to wrap this up, you guys. We're going to be live again tomorrow. At 7 p.m. We'll be joined by my guy Pistons Thoughts. He kind of looks like me. People say that we look like twins. So if you guys see double tomorrow, you'll know why. But we'll see you again tomorrow at 7 p.m. We'll be talking trade rumors, just the games of the week, and other Pistons topics for you guys. Love doing these, weekend podcasts for you guys, giving you guys as much Detroit Pistons content as I love giving you guys just as much Detroit Pistons content as I can. Some of these live chats are funny and I can't repeat them. But again, appreciate you guys. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. Peace.